Really
Hello,
nice. You're
everyone.
great.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, and I appreciate your patience and wanted to welcome you to the Heartcore Hustle. When you hustle from the heart, it's not hard. And we'd like you to be present. Give yourself the gift of presence, being totally focused on the show because the guest that we have coming up is a truly incredible wealth of wisdom, one of my favorite humans on the planet, and one of my greatest mentors and good friend. I apologize. We have a storm here as well in Toronto. So if you see the lights going on and off, it's because of that. Nonetheless, the show will go on. So we want to thank the Ultimate Publishing House for sponsoring this show. I'm a partner in the Ultimate Publishing House, and we've celebrated over 15 years of book publishing and wanted to offer you the opportunity to explore ultimatepublishinghouse.com for more information. So, our guest coming up is Dr. John Demartini, who wrote the foreword to my latest book, Mind Candy. And Dr. John Demartini is truly a master in human behavior. He's written dozens of books. He was in the hit movie, the documentary The Secret. And in my humble opinion, when it comes to not being a hostage of your history and mastering your destiny, Dr. John Demartini is by far the greatest in helping you achieve what spontaneously inspires you from within and determining your highest values. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. John Demartini. Welcome, John.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. And we had a
Thank
bit
you
of
for
technical difficulty.
That's quite all right. It's I guess they say it's better late than never, but I'm glad you're able to join us. Are you wearing your favorite T-shirt today?
I got
We've
your
never seen.
T-shirt on there.
Could we see without? Yeah, check that out. So John's wearing the Hardcore Hustle. I've never seen John in a T-shirt. I'm sure many of you haven't either. Amazing. Thank you for supporting. Super cool. So John, tell us a little bit about share with our listeners and viewers how do you what is the Demartini method and how do you determine your values so you can live a spontaneously inspired life?
Well, I'll do the values first, if we don't mind. Um, every individual at any moment in time, regardless of their background, culture, age, gender, lives by a set of priorities that are unique to them and things that are most important to least important, or hierarchy of values, sometimes called. And whatever is highest on their value, the list of values, is what they are spontaneously inspired from within to pursue. This is where they excel. This is where they have the highest achievements. This is where they don't need to be motivated externally to do it. And finding out what that highest value is really a wise action to do, because if you set goals that are aligned and congruent with that, you tend to walk your talk. You tend to wake up your leadership. You tend to expand yourself. You tend to have more objectivity. There's many benefits, resilience. So if you ask how do you determine those values, you look at how you fill your space because you keep things around you that are important to you and you discard things that aren't. You look at how you spend your time. You make time, find time, spend time on things that are important to you. You look at what energizes you because the things that are really inspiring to you and energizes you, you come alive. You have more energy at the end of the day when you're doing something you really love to do than if you're doing something not inspiring. Where do you spend your money? Look at how you spend your money. Look at where you're most organized, because wherever you're organized, you tend to bring order to things that are really important to you. Where are you most disciplined and reliable and focused? What is it you think about, visualize, and internally dialogue about inside your mind about how you want your life that shows evidence of coming true? What do you keep conversing with other people about most? What do you keep wanting to bring the conversation to and talk about most? What inspires you and brings tears to your eyes? That gives you an indication of what is really high in your values. What is it that you have that's persistent and consistently in your goals that you do achieve, not the ones that you don't come true, not fantasies, but the ones that really do get achieved? And also, what do you love learning about, studying about, reading about the most? Pardon me one second. God. Hello.
That's all right. While John answers the phone, wanted to thank all of you for joining us again. The Hardcore Hustle. Check out FeliciaPizzonia.com, or for everyone in Italy, thank you for joining FeliciaPizzonia.com. Let's keep focused. Let's stay positive, and let's fill our mind with beautiful information. Take copious and give yourself the time or give yourself the gift of presence. So don't multitask right now. It's only an hour. Let's focus on this beautiful wisdom that Dr. Demartini's providing for us. John, welcome back.
Pardon me. That I'm in a hotel, so they happen to call. But the last thing is, what is it you love learning about, studying about, reading about most? You know, we typically go to the online and go look things up in an area that's important to us. We want to learn. We used to be going to bookstores. We go to what's the books that we love studying the most. So if you look at those 13 value determinants and look and write down, say, the top 3 answers to those, and look at which of those answers keep coming up most frequent down to least frequent, it reveals to you what's really priority to you. And if you set goals and structure your life around what's really valuable to you, you increase the probability of those achievements. And then you have more fulfillment, more self-confidence, more self-worth. You tend to expand yourself because you're walking your talk and you're achieving what you set out to do. So many people will set a goal that is not aligned and congruent with what they value most, and then they'll beat themselves up when they don't achieve it. They'll procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate, distract themselves, and they'll say to themselves, you know, why can't I stay focused? Why am I not disciplined? Why do I keep sabotaging? And those kind of things, which just mean that they're not setting goals that are aligned with what's really highest on their value. They're injecting values of people around them about how they should be, supposed to be, need to be, to fit in and conform, instead of actually being original where you make the greatest difference. So first, determining those values, that's crucial. And on my website, drdemartini.com, there's a complimentary value determination process. It's private for you. It'll help you set what those are. Because if you don't set what those are, you'll very commonly say to yourself things you think are important but are not. I mean, I've been doing value determination for 42 years, as well as teaching now almost 48, in about a week, it'll be 48 years. And I'm certain that even though people think they know what's important to them, when they get down and do the value determination, it's not always what they thought. Many people think I want to be financially independent, but they show no evidence of it in their actions. So I'm not interested in what people say they want. I'm interested in what their life demonstrates. And those determinants help you determine what you really are really living instead of what you fantasize about living. And then the Demartini Method is a methodology that I've developed really for over these years to help people to break through the distracting emotions that weigh them down, the infatuations, the resentments, the pride, the shame, the doubts, the fears, the anxieties, the guilts, the griefs, all the extrinsically impacted emotions that hold you down from doing something extraordinary. And it's a series of questions that make you conscious of what has been unconscious, so you can be fully conscious and appreciative and see life on the way and discover the hidden order in the apparent chaos that you might be perceiving, and allow you to be liberated and free to get on without the fears to go and do something extraordinary with your life. So it's a method on helping people break through the limitations that they've self-imposed, primarily because they've tried to be somebody they're not instead of being authentic, and allow them to be themselves. We want to be loved and appreciated for who we are, and the tool, the Demartini Method, helps you be you.
Beautiful, John. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I had the privilege to do the breakthrough experience with you several years back in Toronto. And I invested, I don't even remember, because maybe it was 1,500, 2,000, I'm not sure, but it was worth every penny until today. I always say I would have invested 50K because it totally changed my life. And I recommend that everybody invest, because you're going to spend the money anyway on consumables and depreciables. So it's time to invest in yourself and truly live the heart or live your hardcore hustle. So, John, if you don't mind, I wanted to talk about grief. You know, quite a few of my friends and colleagues have lost a loved one, and many people don't know this about you, but you were married to Athena Star Woman, and she referred to you as her star man. And I mean, the chemistry between you two and the connection was truly unbelievable. She passed away in '04. So I know you have a method on dissolving grief, and being that you went through it yourself, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our viewers, how are they able to dissolve grief as well?
Well, in 1984, I was traveling in El Salvador, Central America, in a little town called La Libertad, which is a beach town which has a fantastic surf there. And I was down there surfing. And after the morning surf, I happened to walk through the town, and there was a big procession of all these people, like 300 people, and as like a parade kind of thing. And I walked in and I said, "¿Qué pasa? What's happening here?" What, trying to get an idea of what's happening. What's the party? And finally, somebody could speak the English, and he said, "We're celebrating the passing of the mayor of the city." And I'm like going, "You're celebrating the passing? That's interesting, because in America, when you think of, somebody dying, there's usually a little bit of solemn, people wear black, and it's kind of zoom and boom, what do you call it, gloom and doom kind of energy." And I thought, well, this is interesting. So I went down to the cemetery with them, and they were partying and feasting and celebrating and dancing and singing. And I asked them why, what's the motive here? And they said, well, we imagine, the way these people imagined it is that their head spirit had been freed, and they're no longer constrained, and they're free. And I thought, oh, it's an interesting perspective. And I never kind of forgot that experience. And I wanted to know, how come somebody can have a death of somebody who can be celebrating and another one can be gloomy? So there has to be some sort of perspective difference. And I thought, what is that perspective? And then I saw just about a year ago, the Soleimani, I think his name was an Iranian general. And I saw 5 million people in Iran, mourning his death because they had him as a hero. And then in America, they were celebrating his death. They had him as a terrorist. And I thought, that's interesting. There's two different perspectives again, two different things about one man's death. And I was very fascinated by, why do people have the responses they did as a human behaviorist? So I started thinking, I found out this. I found out that if you're infatuated with somebody, you fear their loss. If you're resentful to somebody, you fear their gain. So if you're dating somebody and you're enamored and infatuated, and somebody else comes along and takes them away, you have grief. But if you have reached a point where it's about to end the relationship and you're so burned out on it and you're resenting them and somebody takes them away, you're relieved. So I realized that anything that supports our value, that we are attracted to, if it's taken away, we have a grief process. Anything that we resent, that we don't want, we're trying to avoid, if it comes near us, we can have a grief process. Anything that we are infatuated with that comes near us, we have a relief. Anything that we resent, that we're trying to avoid, and it goes away from us, we have a relief. And there's neurochemistry for each one. There's dopamine and oxytocin and vasopressin and kephalons and endorphins, and there's serotonin and estrogen. When you are seeking something and it comes near you, those go up. If it goes away from you, they go down. And there's other chemistry, the opposite chemistry on the things that you're trying to repel from. And so I studying those chemistries and studying grief, I realized that the things, when somebody dies, you don't grieve everything about them as much as you like, because whoever you're with, there's going to be things you like and dislike. If you're married, there's things you kind of like about them and things you kind of dislike, but you you take the bag, you take the whole thing. But the things that you dislike, if that's over with, you don't grieve the loss of that. I've done 3,500 and about 87, I think, grief process on people that have died, working one-on-one with people in my programs. And they never miss the things that they resented or disliked or wanted to avoid or wish they could have changed about the individual. They're only grieving the things they were infatuated with, that they admired, that they were hooked by, and they didn't want to lose. So I realized that if I can take those items that they are still infatuated with, that they're grieving the loss of, and find out in their life the downsides of them and neutralize them. Because every trait, when we are infatuated with somebody, eventually the very traits that we admire about them can become the things that annoy us over time. And the very traits that sometimes despise sometimes can make us grow and become, when then we're later appreciative. So there's no real trait out there that's really positive or negative until you narrow your mind and kind of label it such. So if I go in there and I find the other side to it and level those out and find the downsides, the things that they were missing, and find out the benefits of the new forms in their life that it's emerging into, because when somebody leaves, a lot of their behaviors show up in people around them, and sometimes even in themselves. And so once I show them that it's not lost and it's in another form, and the benefits of the new form and the drawbacks of the old form, and level it out, the grief's gone. And then we did a study in Keio University in Tokyo with two professors there. And we did a demonstration, and they followed these people a week, a month, a quarter, a second quarter, a third quarter, and a year. And we took the pilot study, and we took all the people that had prolonged grief syndrome, and we dissolved it in 2 hours and 17-minute averages. And they followed them for a year. Not one of them had grief. And I've been doing this, like I said, since '84. And it's a science, and people do not have to grieve. It's a choice. And when my wife passed away, Athena, what's interesting, when you do the process and you finish it, you feel the presence of the individual. You have tears of gratitude, not out of sorrow, not out of grief, but out of a feeling of presence and love for the time you had with this individual. And so I did the process as she was declining. She had a breast cancer that metastasized, and I did the process as she was declining, and all the traits that I was admiring that were now fading, I did it all the way along over the 2-month period from the time we discovered it until the time she passed. And then by the time she was ready to pass, it wasn't a solemn situation. It was a very loving situation and presence. And people interviewed me. Women's Weekly magazine interviewed me 4 days later, and the lady was infatuated with my wife because she was so celebrity, and she was grieving. So I had to help her with my process so she could finish the interview. And I just took her through the process, and then she was centered, and she goes, "Wow." And I'm not grieving. I said, "No, because you only grieve the loss of the things you infatuate with and that you admire, or the fantasies that you thought were going to occur that you're having withdrawal symptoms from. And once you balance those out, which are not hard to do, just asking the right question, hold yourself accountable and balance it. You respect them. Nobody, when you die, whoever's out there who's listening, when you die, I've asked thousands of people this, thousands. I've never met anybody that can honestly look me in the eye and say, when I die, I want all my people that are left around grieving. No, what you want is you want them to live their life to the fullest and be inspired by their life and go fulfill their life. So it's kind of a selfish act, really, because we're holding on to our infatuations and not honoring them as a whole person. Because if we actually see both sides of it and balance them and honor them for them, instead of just put a facade of one side on there, we'll feel their presence. When we love somebody, we feel present with them.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that, John. Incredible. Let's touch upon perhaps addiction. During St. COVID, the current economic or current world state rather, and you referred to it as St. COVID, and we're going to touch upon that and the beautiful opportunities that are available. I would like you to touch upon addiction, especially, I happen to be in Toronto today, and if you walk the streets of Toronto, you smell the new scent for the last year is marijuana everywhere. And during St. COVID, you tend to smell it a lot more, and marijuana sales have gone through the roof, and weed and or alcohol and what have you. So I'd like you to touch upon addiction and also cross addictions. If you can help our viewers and listeners perhaps get over an addiction or somehow start their journey on fulfilling their highest values.
Let me first develop it in this fashion. I'm going to make a statement that impulsive, compulsive, immediate gratifying, addictive behavior uh, is a byproduct of unfulfilled highest values. I'm going to say it again. Impulsive, compulsive, immediate gratifying, addictive behavior is a compensation for not fulfilling your highest values. And let me use this analogy. If we look at when our patterns, when we are overeating, for instance, we'll find out that if we have a very, 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 very meaningful, very inspiring, very important, engaging action that's about to come up, we have an increased discipline and moderation in our lifestyle and eating styles prior to that event. For instance, if you're about to get married and you're about to get in a wedding dress and it's 10 days away, you have incredible discipline to make sure you're not chested, but flat bellied, and make sure you're in perfect shape for that wedding dress. I'm using an example here. But so you're not, because you have something so deeply meaningful to get the marriage ceremony, you're not likely to go and blow it. But the moment you go and finish the wedding, on the night of the wedding, you may overdrink, you may overeat, you may do whatever, because you've now reached that pinnacle thing that you're striving for. And people that are very engaged in business, for instance, and they're doing a project they're totally inspired by, and it's meaningful to them, they don't sit down and go, well, when's a break? They forget about breaks. They don't want to live to eat. They don't go out and try to consume to feel better. Retail therapy. They're engaged and they're focused and they're prioritized, and their executive portion of their brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, comes online, and they're disciplined, they're reliable, they're focused, they're really there. But if they're not engaged in something deeply meaningful, their blood glucose and oxygen goes down into the amygdala. And the amygdala is an area called the desire center. And it's the source primarily of the dopamine that most people use that become the addictive compounds. And anytime you're not in your executive center and you're down in your amygdala and you want to avoid a predator and seek a prey, avoid pain, seek pleasure, hedonistic, immediate gratifying, compulsive, impulsive, consumer-based, fantasy-seeking, immediately gratifying escapism immediately emerges as a compensation for not filling your day with fulfillment. So when we're not fulfilled deeply, we go and fill full our own body as a compensation. If we're not fulfilling our mind, we fulfill our body. And the way we do that is we want immediate gratification. And so we want to dissociate from our challenges that are unfulfilling because we're not doing something that's deeply meaningful, and we want to escape. Now, I haven't smoked pot since I was 17. I think that was the last time I ever smoked pot. And I haven't drank since I was 17, except one glass of wine in Paris. I don't do that, but that's because I also fill my day daily, 7 days a week, with something that I love doing, which is what I'm doing right now. So the first thing, if somebody wants to transcend addictive behaviors, is first we need to find out what is really highest on their value and start to get them structured in a lifestyle and structure that allows them to go and do something that's deeply meaningful, that is so inspiring that they wouldn't want to escape it. They don't want to get away from it, because otherwise escapism is not allowing them to fulfill what's meaningful. There's no way you will convince me that getting high on marijuana will compete with having fulfillment and meaning. Hedonistic pursuits, even the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius and the great Greek philosophers knew, and it's no different today, that meaning is way more profound than immediate gratification and pleasure seeking and escapism. And so the first thing is to identify what's really, truly meaningful and structure your life so you can fulfill with your action steps things that are deeply meaningful. That's one. The second thing that I do when I have people that are addicted to drugs, sex, whatever, to alcohol, whatever it is, doesn't matter what, is I ask them, what is the benefit they're getting out of it? And they have unconscious motives why they do it. Can I share a story? Do I have time to share a story?
Of course, yeah, please do.
Okay, so I was in Los Angeles at Universal Studios filming for a reality TV show many years ago. And it was interesting. They gave me 12 people to transform the lives of in 24 hours. So I had 2 hours each. It's a long friggin' period there. So 12 people, 2 hours each, 24 hours to change these people's lives. And I didn't know what they were, didn't know what their issues were, but they're all different types. One was a man that had been a big executive for Disney and now is on the streets. Another one that was a prostitute and a heroin addict, Another one that was an overeater and addicted to food. And another one that thought they had no memory. There's all kind of interesting cases. I had 2 hours to transform their life. It was quite a bit unrealistic. But and this lady came in who was the up-and-coming client. And she was a large woman, not huge, but a larger woman. And she came in and brought 2 giant boxes of food in. And as she came in, she announced, "Oh, I brought everybody some food." And we just thought, okay, well, we got food here already. Don't need it. And then she went on to eat more food than I probably eat in a week by herself. She ate all the food. No one else hardly ate anything. And I was thinking, wow. And she's the one that wants me to cure her of her food addiction and overweight. And so I thought, this is interesting. This is an interesting one. So I asked her, the first question I asked her when I got in front of her, in front of the camera, I said, so just out of curiosity, nobody continues to do something unless they have a more advantage and disadvantage out of doing it. So you must have some conscious or unconscious advantage out of eating. Let's discover it. And she says, no, there's no benefit to it. It's killing me. Look at me. Look at me. She ranted all those things about that she'd been told by everybody and how it's damaging her. I said, but I'm not interested in all the superficial social belief systems about eating. I'm interested in you right now. You're not going to continue to do something unless you perceive somehow there's more advantage and disadvantage. No one is going to do something consciously, but they're going to do something unconsciously. But there's an advantage. So what exactly is the advantages you get? And I had to stop her from ranting. And finally, she said, my sister is a big girl. My mom and dad is big. My brother is big. And then all of a sudden she got a little watery-eyed and she said, I don't feel like I'm part of my family unless I fit in. I thought, okay, write that down. So one of the benefits is you feel closer to your family because if you're thin, you feel disconnected from the rest of them because they like eating. Yes, she got a little watery-eyed. I said, great. What's another benefit of your eating? And then she said, well, my sister and I used to fight a lot and she used to push me around. And I swore I would never let her push me around again. And I make sure I'm always bigger than her because I was less than her and she used to push me around. So she never allowed herself to get smaller than her sister. And that was unconsciously inside her. And she didn't realize that until I brought it out. I said, then what's the next benefit? And she dug. Now she's starting to get into it because she's going, I never thought about this. And then she found the big one that broke her into tears. She said one time when she was in her early 20s, and she was large, not obese, but pretty large. She said, I went on a really fasting, starvation diet kind of thing and lost 45 pounds. The only time in my life where I just really dropped the weight. And when I did, I started to feel, more confident. And then the moment I got there, a guy hit on me. I never had guys trying to date me or anything like that. A guy hit on me. And I thought, this is the one. I thought, my God, this is him. And so I was vulnerable. And we ended up on the very first night kissing and making out. And we actually made love and had sex. And in the morning, I never heard from him again. And I felt so angry and so bitter that I felt used. And then I found out 6.5 weeks later, I was pregnant and I was not wanting to have a baby. And yet I was Catholic and I'm not allowed to have abortion, but I don't want to have a baby. I don't want his baby. And I lived in hell trying to make a decision. And I eventually aborted the child. And I felt shame and guilt on that. And I've never, ever lost weight again. And I swear I would never want to do that again. So she protected herself from that situation, from one of the most painful situations, by making sure she never, because she associated losing weight with the most painful thing she's ever had in her life. And we went through and found out these unconscious motives and kept going. And it wasn't just a few. I made her list 75 of these things. And we just kept digging and digging and digging and digging and finding out what it is. Because until you uncover what those unconscious motives for doing what you're doing, they're going to just keep running your life. So we bring them to the surface. And then what I did is I said, now, how do we get those same benefits of being with your family, not feeling intimidated by your sister, not worrying about having sex with somebody again? How do we find viable alternative ways of getting those same benefits without having to eat? And we started stacking those viable alternative ways, because unless your brain has an alternative pathway to get the same outcome that you're desiring or avoiding the pain side, it's going to keep going the same path because it doesn't know an alternative. So I had to come up with viable alternatives, then link those new alternatives, the highest priority ones, to the highest priority values, and then de-link the original behavior of eating to those values. So there's pain associated with now eating, and there's benefits to trying the viable alternatives. Anyway, we got to do that. We did not finish that in 2 hours. She went home and she worked on that, and that changed her life, hugely changed her life, because she was eating what she thought was some sort of external reason why she was overeating and being addicted to this food. Was not anything but the stacked association she had that she had made in her life. And most people want to blame something, blame a gene, blame a chemistry, blame a parent, or blame something, instead of actually being accountable and look at what their values are, look at how they're associated things. And I am absolutely certain that there's more you can do once you actually learn how to do that with these types of behaviors, because they're unconscious motived, they're strategic, they're avoiding pains. I had a guy that was an addict to alcohol in Denver, Colorado. His father used to beat him with a baseball bat and fought with him because his mother died. And when his mother died, he was responsible for doing everything that the mother did in the house from age 4. He had to go grocery shopping. He had to cook. He had to clean the house. He had to do everything, plus try to do the things that a 4-year-old does. And the second he got 14 years old, he was so angry with his father and hated his father so much, he stole the father's truck and went out with a friend and drank, and then got in a crash and killed his best friend. And the crash, his friend died. And the psyche was, I had so much pain, I want to avoid that. And in the breakthrough experience, I went in there and went through each one of those and dissolved those situations that he was trying to avoid, because you never have an addiction to something without a subdiction that you're trying to avoid in your consciousness. Just like the girl was trying to avoid the idea of getting pregnant again and the pain of the abortion. And once we uncovered that with this gentleman and found out what it was and helped him appreciate his father from a new perspective, that was the last time he drank. So I've seen this over and over again. So I don't want to say that it's a genetic thing, it's a family thing. I don't want to keep blaming things. We disempower ourselves when we dissociate and blame from things. We have more power to transform our life than we realize. So don't let anybody on the outside interfere with what you're capable of doing. Learn what's really going on inside you to find out why you're doing what you're doing. It's not just a random thing. It's not because you're powerless. It's not because you don't have some anthropomorphic deity running your life. It's because you're not being accountable and not aware of your unconscious motives, and it's the associations, and you're not filling your day with something deeply meaningful and you don't believe you can fulfill what's meaningful, but you can. There's ways and strategies to master that. Anyway, I could go off on tangents on that, but
Wow. Amazing. Brilliant. Brilliant. I love it. And check out drdemartini.com if you'd like to enroll in a course or do the method, or not the method, the value determination. You'd be glad you did. And, John, if we can, do we have, can we go past 4 o'clock
yeah,
Eastern?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, great.
because
Great.
I got a technology issue.
I remember you saying, and one of the pivotal moments was when something doesn't occupy time and space in your mind, and you neutralize that emotional charge towards that memory, you quite literally defy the aging process, which is a nice bonus as well. And if you can tell us during this world situation, how can someone reinvent themselves and take advantage of St. COVID?
Well, the first thing to do, because of what I teach and because I have students around the world, the very first month of COVID, I must have gotten, I'm going to guess 170 emails come into me from students around the world. And they're sending me the list of the benefits and blessings of COVID. They're sending me a list that they've accumulated. So my students who were taking my advice were, instead of sitting there bitching about what's going on, instead of bitching, they're enriching it. And they found out what's the upsides. Because if you see only the downsides, well, that's because you're choosing to look at only the downsides of the COVID, and that's your choice. And if you see only the downsides, you're going to feel down. That's kind of irrational when you stop and think about it. Why would you want to do that to yourself? So I basically taught them to do it. They did it, and I got this list, thousands of things of benefits that were there. Some of them were obvious and anybody could see them. Others were maybe more unique to their life. But I'll give you an example. I was in New Delhi, India, speaking a little over a year ago, more than a year now, 2019, and almost 2018, I guess. And it was so hazy and polluted. The average distance was fluctuating between around 50 to 80 feet. That's all you could see. It smelled, the pollution was unbelievable. When COVID came along and all the people, nobody's on the roads and for the first time in 35 years, they could see the mountains. People didn't even know there's mountains behind the city. People have been there for years, never seen them. Los Angeles had the cleanest air for 18 years. There were a whole lot of people that found out that they could do business at home. A lot of them went online. A lot of them became entrepreneurs. And some learned how to be able to be with their family and run a business without having to deal with traffic, not have to travel. Some realized that they were able to do things more efficiently. Some got closer to their family and got to interact. I mean, the benefits started coming in, and people started getting resourceful. And comedy of, you remember in March and April, some of the comical stuff that was on the online, it was just hilarious. And gimmicks and things were playing around the house. So when they started listing those, if you choose to see the upsides, and I'm not trying to be a positive thinker, I'm just trying to be a balanced thinker. If I see a downside, I'm blind to the upside. If I see the upside, I'm blind to the downside. I like to keep them balanced. I don't like to have, because anything you're infatuated with occupies space and time and mind and runs you. Anything you resent occupies space and time and mind and runs you. We've all been in a situation where we're trying to sleep at night and we're highly infatuated with somebody who can hardly sleep, or highly resentful to somebody who hardly sleep, because they're running our minds, because we got such a lopsided perception. Only when we balance it are we liberated and have a clear consciousness. So I take it upon myself to ask questions to make me fully conscious of unconscious information, to balance the equation, to liberate myself from those distractions. And if an individual right now will take the time to look at the upsides and quit focusing on the problem and go to the solution and focus on, people say, well, I don't have any work. And I said, the only reason you don't have any work is because you're not caring about humanity to go out and find some human being that has a need and fill it. And they go, I never thought about that. I'm waiting for a job to give me security out there. And if they don't have a job, I don't have security. I said, well, that's blaming something out there for your reality. instead of asking yourself, what exactly is income? Income comes from serving somebody. So what, with your talents and your skills and your knowledge, who could you be serving? And how do you serve them? And quit focusing about the problem and blaming somebody out because they don't have a job to hire you right now, and go find a way of serving somebody. I said at a church one time, I was asked to speak there. They've never asked me back, but I said, if you're poor, it's because you're not caring about humanity enough to go out and do something to earn some money to serve people. And if you serve a lot of people, you'll have a lot of income. And if you manage it wisely and value yourself and value having money work for you as a master instead of be a slave, then you won't have this issue. So you're focusing on what's not working instead of focusing on how to get the solution. But if a person goes out and asks what's the benefit of COVID, there is a massive amount of benefits of COVID. I could list tons of them. I'm online. I've done over 300 presentations since March, over 300. You know, I'm a workhorse anyway, but I've on 300. I've done some 3 a day. I've done 4 a day presentations and interviews and talks in different countries around the world. So there is, if you're willing to go out and do whatever it takes to go and fulfill whatever your mission is, then COVID doesn't interfere with it. As long as you perceive things on the outside bigger than your dreams on the inside, the world's going to run you. But if your vision is greater than the obstacles, you're going to run it. So I don't see COVID as anything except an experience. The question is, how do I use it to my greatest advantage? One of the greatest questions you want to ask yourself is, how is whatever's happening right this minute, how's it helping me fulfill my highest value? Yes. I don't know if I froze there. Did I freeze for a second? Okay, let me say it again. One of the greatest questions you can ever ask yourself, the greatest questions you can ask yourself is, how did whatever happen to me right now, whatever's happening, how is it helping me fulfill my mission? That is a great question. Because if you're not asking that, you're going to think the world out there in your life. But that's the greatest thing. It's never what happens to you, it's your. Even in my experience, people have these events and they resourceful questions, and then they let it their life, and instead of going and they have the wisdom of the ages instead of the wisdom of the ages without it, by finding out how it served them. So I'm a firm believer in asking, how is what's happening right now a benefit to you? And they go, but it's not. And then, well, as long as you say that, you're stuck. Why would you want to limit your experience and say that there's no benefits to it? There is no thing in this world that doesn't have a benefit and a drawback. There's always ability to find and extract some benefit out of everything that has ever happened in your life. I was shot at in my life when I was a teenager. I was a street kid. I used to panhandle. I used to go into diners and find saltine crackers and ketchup for dinner. I mean, I've been in drug heroin dens and been attacked. I've had people try to sexually a thing when I was sleeping. I've had all kinds of things in life. Not one of those are errors. Not one of those are anything that's interfering. They're all part of my journey. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to avoid. There's something to turn to, how do I use this experience? Because all of those components help me help people today and know how to help them to see the other side and spin it differently. So anything you can't say thank you for is baggage. Anything you can say thank you for is fuel. And if you're a victim of history, it's not because of anybody outside you. It's just because you're choosing to not see how it served you and how you can use it to advantage and how you can make a difference in people's lives with it. So if you want to run that story, then go ahead. You're going to stay small all your life. But if you want to go out and do something extraordinary with your life, then get out of the box and find out how it's on the way, not in the way. And there is, I guarantee you, an answer if you look. And once you look, you go, wow. And then you realize that you have the power to transform anything that's happening in your life. And that's valuable and liberating and empowering to realize that it's not out there, it's you. Epictetus said it really well, the Greek philosopher. He says, when you're first on your journey of self-development, you blame the world outside you, blame others. On your journey, you then start blaming yourself. But when you finally become aware, you realize there's nothing out there to blame. There's just an event, and it's there in your life. And by the way, if you're infatuated with somebody supporting you, you attract a challenger. If you're infatuated with somebody protecting you, you attract an aggressor. If you're infatuated with somebody, who's generous, you attract a thief. Whatever you're attracted to, which keeps you juvenilely dependent, you attract the opposite to make you grow up. And those things out there you think are challenging are exactly what you need to become resourceful, innovative, creative, because it's innovation, creativity, and genius occurs when you're pursuing challenges that inspire you. And it's challenges that make people grow, not the supportive, easy, comfortable life. People that are basically been overprotected in life, they're the ones working for other people. The people that are challenged in life, they become the entrepreneurs that lead the way. So you be grateful for the challenges in your life. I learned from Norman Vincent Peale, if you ever wake up without a problem or without a challenge, get on your hands and knees and pray for one because you died. Life is about tackling challenges and doing something extraordinary with them. And the world is filled with challenges, and whoever can solve the greatest challenges contributes the most to the world. They're the most respected. So don't run from challenge. Seek out the challenges that inspire you to fulfill and tackle them. That's the great life. Anyway, did you get me
Beautiful.
warmed up?
Amazing, amazing. Love it, John, and thank you for that. Let's have some Dr. D fun facts. So, John, tell us, what's your favorite food?
My favorite food, well, probably grapes. I have
Grapes.
grapes, probably. I'd say that's probably the thing that I eat pretty well every day. I love nibbling on grapes and eating grapes. When I'm on my ship, they know that I don't eat desserts. I don't eat sweets. I eat fruit, which is sweet, but I don't eat sweets. I haven't had sweets. I haven't had sugar in my body or diet for 48 years. That's just not my thing. But I do eat grapes. So they know when I finish my meal, they bring me 2 grapes, just to change my palate. And in the morning, I usually have some plain, I think it's called Siggy's yogurt. It's a plain Siggy's yogurt. It's a plain, really whole milk yogurt, a little bit of yogurt, some grapes, and some multigrain bread or cereals or something. But I eat grapes. That's probably the thing that I love eating the most. But sometimes, or apples, or mango. And as far as fish, I enjoy fish, salmon. And as far as vegetables, I love carrots and broccoli. So those are the things I probably eat more than anything is carrots, broccoli, fish, multigrains, yogurt, and grapes. Those are if I looked at all the food
Nice.
that I eat, it would probably stand out the most. I'm
And bread.
66. I'm doing
I've witnessed you eat a little bit of bread. I think it's the hardcore Italian in you.
Yes, I love multigrain bread. I'm a bread eater, but bread is also I eat quite a bit of bread, but I love grapes. I love the
Nice.
taste of grape.
Okay. Couple more fun facts. Tell us, John, what about, well, let's show this picture. This is Dr. D surfing at age 65. He has no problem telling you how old he is. He looks fantastic. Clearly, the Demartini method's working on him. So here's Dr. D. Tell us about this picture. And I think it was about a year ago. Your birthday's
Yeah.
coming up. You're 65 here. So where were you here, Dr. D?
Well, I'm going to show you another picture because you brought that one. I got to bring another one. Hold up. So when I was 16 years old, I was in Haleiwa, Hawaii, and there was a big day there. And I was a surfer, big wave rider at the time. I had long hair and a beard, a typical hippie-looking thing. And I saw Becky Benson, who was around 16, and Lord Blair, who was 65, surfing about 24-foot waves. It wasn't giant, but it was good-sized waves. But I saw this 65-year-old guy out there surfing, and I thought, cool, that is so cool. And he was ripping. He was just cranking it. And I just thought, wow, when I'm 65, I'm going to come to the North Shore and I'm going to ride big waves. So on my 65th birthday, I organized a breakthrough experience in Honolulu. And on that Monday, which is the day after, I went out to the North Shore on my birthday at 5. We left at 5, got there right at 6. Went out and surfed at Lani Kea, which is that picture, surfing Lani Kea. And it was fantastic. It wasn't giant. It was about 12-foot faces, give or take. And so it was a small, moderate day, which is probably to my advantage. And I went surfing. And then we came in from there and drove down to Pipeline because I made a commitment to surf pipeline. And I
Mhm.
went back out and I surfed pipeline. I don't know if you can see it there. Can't
Wow.
tell if it's. So I went out and surfed out at pipeline at
Nice.
65. And there's another. But I surfed at
Amazing.
pipeline and I did it. And I was inspired because it was a goal that I had for 49 years. 49 years. I knocked out, ticked that off. I also, when I was there, went to the park bench that I used to sleep under because I lived at that park under a park bench. And
Hmm.
and I went to the park bench with my daughter. She was there. Both my daughters were there. And my daughter and I sat on there, got a picture taken. And a lady came up and recognized me when I did. And I saw another guy that I surfed with 49 years earlier. He was still living there. And so it was really quite a cool moment to have somebody come up to you after all those years and go, wow. And it was interesting because the girl didn't look the same. I didn't hardly recognize her, but the guy I recognized immediately. I go, man, I can't. I used to surf with that guy. But they're
Wow.
still in the North Shore surfing big waves. And it was a very special day on my 65th birthday to ride big waves on the North Shore. It wasn't super
Beautiful.
big, but it was, 12-foot phase, 15-foot phase, something like that. Nothing huge. But it was quite an inspiring day. So that I did knock off that. Now my goal is when I'm 100 to go to the North Shore. So I've got now 1 year later. So I got 34, whatever it is, 34 years later, I'll go back again and I'm going to do, and then when I'm 100, I'm going to surf the North Shore. That's the next goal.
Incredible. John, just one more fun fact. Other than Mind Candy by Moi, what are your top three favorite books?
Well, the number one book or two volumes making up one book that I love most is a book called Syntopican, volumes 1 and 2. Syntopican by
Hmm.
Mortimer Adler. Mortimer Adler, Syntopican, Syntopicon. And what this is a incredibly comprehensive and edited book. It's about, oh God, 1,600 pages between the two volumes. That is the greatest ideas by the greatest minds in the Western world that's lived for the last 2,700 years. And the summary of their ideas condensed into various topics. They're the most meaningful topics that a human being could learn and explore. It's like a PhD in life. And I believe it's probably the best book that's been compiled on the mastery of human behavior, on life, and to help you
Hmm.
understand all the facets of life. So those are the two volumes that make up one book that I usually encourage people to devour. I've also been a fan in my life of Ralph Waldo Emerson and his essays. Any of his selected writings have always been an inspiration. He was a transcendentalist. His writings are practical. I'm not so much interested in kind of a quick, you know, um, fast, best-selling kind of text as much today as a real classic, something that really is filled with something that will stand. And if you learn it, it will last the rest of your life. The information will be valuable to you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Pardon me.
Wonderful,
Pardon
wonderful.
me. So somebody just came to my door. Pardon me these interruptions. Pardon me 1 second. It just came and knocking on the
That's
door.
okay. We forgive you, John. You're a fellow Paisan. So while John gets the door, welcome, or not welcome, but thank you everyone for joining us on the Hardcore Hustle. Special thank you to Alfonso Egizi for taking care of my hair. Might as well give you a shout out. And thank you, to everyone else that has supported the Hardcore Hustle. John is back. Go ahead, John.
Well, I just because I was in a hotel, I told them to come back about 3:30 or so, and I came a few minutes early to clean the room here. But thank you for the questions. Thank you for
Mhm.
what you're doing. Thank you for bringing people's ideas in things that people have in their heart that they want to put down on writing that they may have not finished, but inside by meeting you and helping them put the book together, you're able to give things that are deeply meaningful to people, to other people, and create a ripple effect in other people's lives because of that. And a lot of people, if they didn't have somebody to push them over the edge, they'd never get their book out there. And so by what you're doing with the books, you get people to get messages out to people that they would never do. So thanks for that. Thanks for the interview. Thanks for the friendship. Thanks for coming on that live program a week or two ago that we did. I thought
Yes,
that was great.
that was awesome.
And,
Nice to see you, John,
and,
as always. And
and
thank you. I
thanks
really
a lot.
appreciate it. I truly appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to see you. Incredible energy. We're all energy, as you know, the law of vibration. And I wanted to thank you since I've done the Demartini method again. I'm always, or not the method, the reevaluating my values. I just was inspired to do that last week. And they shifted ever so slightly, but it's always my number one to focus on my ultimate publishing house. We cracked over 2,000 books to date we've published, and I have 11 of my own and 7 bestsellers. Of course, I think it helped that you wrote my foreword. This became a bestseller in less than 60 days on my grandmother's birthday. The original Felicia Pizzonia, September 11th, she passed away a few years back. So God bless her soul, and thanks for helping my book become a bestseller. And John, we'll have you on the show again. There's so many more, questions that I want to touch upon, but I think that's enough for now. And everyone that's listening and watching, please check out drdemartini.com. Check out the shopping area there. I did a little shopping. Invest in yourself. He's got unbelievable information. And as you can see, he's living proof. The gentleman looks like he's 40 years old, and he's got unbelievable energy and wisdom. So please invest in yourself. And thank you again. And thank you, John, for joining us. I know that you're a man on a mission. And so your time is truly precious. So I'm truly grateful for having you on the show. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Hardcore Hustle. You're very welcome. And thank you, everyone, for joining the Hardcore Hustle. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you soon. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
So
Felicia Pizzonia, wishing you the best and success.